joyful, you could be angry, you could be hurt. It could be any of those emotions which pull you away from being your productive best. And what you all are saying is actually helping already lay the ground for and cement what I'm talking about. There is a direct correlation between my state of mind and my productivity. And because there is a direct correlation between my state of mind and my productivity, so it goes on to show that when I use my brain to meditate, to calm myself, to center myself, my productivity will go up. But we will just come back to that. The mind can only be in one place at a time. Let's understand that fully. All brain research seems to suggest that all conversation about multitasking is very misleading. People will tell us, of course, you can multitask, the brain is a magical organ, etc., etc., etc. But what they don't, or what they decline to tell us is that brain studies, brain theory tells us that the brain likes to work in a very structured, logical, organized manner. If it is something which is new, if it is something which I've never done before, if it is something which is complex, or if it is something which catches my interest, the brain will take up all the resources that there are and it will focus on just that to be able to get the most out of it. If during that time, in any of these circumstances, new, complex, interesting, never done before, which is different from new, never done before, in any of these circumstances, if your brain is distracted, you will not be able to do your best over there. So Sonali says, it's like when you fight with your parents and now you don't feel like studying because your mood is off. Don't fight with your parents just before you have to study then, Sonali. And the other says exactly that. I thought of exactly that. So don't. Don't use the fight with your parents as the reason to not study. Okay? Study, and study with getting your mind in order. You'll also find that since a lot of you are students, you'll also find that when you sit down to study and you've just calmed yourself, you've centered yourself, and now you start to study with focus, you will always remember what you studied. You will not need to revise it too much. It will be easy recall for you. But when you sit down to study under stress, when you sit down to study under duress, when you sit down to study when your mind is distracted, even if you write it 10 times down, even if you study it by rote and you're like, you know, that typical way of moving back and forth and studying, you will not remember it. Notice this, observe this for yourselves, that this is what it happens. So coming back to the focus of the mind, our mind can only be in one place at a time. So if its attention is not fully engaged with what you're doing, the class, the subject you're studying, the task that you're doing, etc., you will find you will end up missing something, or you will end up, and a lot of people do this. I find a little, if maybe it works for them, it doesn't work for me. They'll work in short breaks and then they'll relax for long breaks. Work in short breaks, relax. That doesn't allow the brain to really absorb what is going on. If you're working, relaxing, working, relaxing, and when relaxing happens, it could usually be, I could be gossiping, I could be munching on stuff which isn't very good for my body, I could be really dumbing myself down by gazing into the TV or mindless scrolling on Instagram and so on and so forth. Any of those things. Saurabh says, I too used to recite when I used to study. Good days. Yeah, I know, Saurabh. I know. Amran says, why is your mood off? So many reasons, Amran. Since you're joining us for the first time, it might be a good idea for you to go back to the first and the second sessions that we did on emotional intelligence. They're up here on Crater. You can go to my YouTube, which is on Coach Butcher, or which is the handler's Coach Butcher. Where else can you go? You can go to my LinkedIn. You'll find that stuff there as to why does our mood go off? What is the whole thing or the whole deal about emotional intelligence? On focus, there is a gentleman called Carl Newport, who is the author of a book called Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Very Distracted World. He says, high quality work is a function of two things: the amount of time you spend on the work itself and the intensity of your focus during this time. And he goes on to say, if you increase your focus, you will get done more in lesser time. Ritisha, yes, but it doesn't matter. I'm an Indian and I'm a human being. Most important than that. Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter. Okay, so the point is, If you desire to be more productive, why am I talking about focus right in the beginning? If you desire to be more productive, we need to train our mind to be able to apply sustained effort, to be able to apply calm, centered, focused effort. And that's where meditation for productivity comes in. To understand that, let's first understand what is the correlation between the brain, which is our center for productivity, or our root for productivity, and meditation. So, without going too much into technicality, and I remember somebody had asked me this question in one of the sessions, saying, "Can you explain how meditation works on the mind?" And I didn't want to say anything at that point of time because I didn't want to give the wrong answer. I'm not an expert on brain study. I have to tell you that whatever little I know about it is what I study, what I read, what I, when I speak to people who do have some sort of expertise in the brain, in neurology, in linking neurology and neurotransmitting with leadership, etc. My information, my knowledge is from there. So please take that as a disclaimer that I'm not an expert in brain study. Now, just coming back, the fundamental is that we have something called neurons in our body, in our brain. And our brain grows, develops through what are called neural connections. Neurons are the cells in our brain which actually process information. They connect with each other to make what are called neural pathways, like literally like bridges inside our brain. They make these pathways, and those pathways are responsible for my thoughts, my sensations that I feel on the body, my feelings, and my actions that I take. And this happens neurologically, scientifically is the best word I can use for it. When messages go from neuron to neuron, when it's called a transmission, when transmission happens from neuron to neuron, it creates kind of like a current. And this current is actually called neural oscillations. Scientists call this neural oscillations. Now, in these neural oscillations, the way they classify brain waves is from the highest, most subtle, or the most connected to the universal waves or universal energy, to the lowest, which means more physical. So it goes from fabulous. I'm so sorry, I'm interrupted and I'll come back. Ganesh says he's in biotechnology engineering and he has taken up neurology as a specialization. You can come back and talk, Ganesh. And now Ganesh is also saying that I'll come back, I'll be able to talk. Awesome, Ganesh. Okay. So, as I was talking about, the classification goes from highest, most subtle oscillation to the lowest, most physical, most dense oscillation. So the way it goes is gamma, and gamma waves actually, are the most active when our minds are learning, when our minds are in hyperactivity mode. So right now, most likely, if you're truly learning, if you're listening to me with focus and you're not distracted by 5 other things around you, your gamma waves will be high. Also, when we're meditating, yes, Ganesh. So we'll be coming to that. So when the gamma waves are active, they boost our learning process. When they are active, we are able to retain information most easily. The opposite of that is when gamma waves go out of hand, they can cause anxiety. And that's where I think Ganesh is also coming. Raghav says he didn't get it. Ask away, Raghav. What is it that you didn't get and what's your question? Our brains produce gamma waves. So not gamma waves that you have out there in the universe and radiating gamma waves, but these oscillations are named. Yeah, thank you, Ganesh. There are, we're energy, aren't we? So there is a frequency, there is a vibration, there is that current that I was speaking about, neuron to neuron to neuron to neuron. When messages are getting transmitted, there are oscillations, neural oscillations that get produced. When these neural oscillations get produced, they have been given the names, the same names: gamma, alpha, beta, gamma, theta, delta. They've been given those same names. So it's not the waves, the radiation waves of alpha, beta, gamma. These neural oscillations that are called that. So coming back, and just for the purpose of ease, okay, there you go, Ganesh says there is gamma radiation emitted when extensive brain activity occurs, but exactly what he's saying, rays aren't emitted. So it's not the radiation rays, it's actually the neural oscillations, the neural conversations. Conversations is the easiest way I can say it, the neural conversations that are happening. There were experiments that were done where the brain waves of experienced Tibetan meditators were monitored. And that showed exactly what Ganesh is saying. That showed that their gamma waves were 2 to 3 times higher when they were meditating rather than when they were resting. So even if they were in a profound, relaxed state of meditation, there was an extraordinary level of alertness, which is also why, you know, you'll have, if you've ever, they had a helmet attached to the monks. Yes, that is correct. Thank you for saying that, Sonali. So whenever, it is said, or whenever you read any Zen meditation books, etc., or you read about Zen masters, it's been said that a Zen master could be sitting in meditation, and yet he or she will be able to listen to the fall of a leaf and know that a leaf has fallen to the ground that silently, because the level of alertness goes up. So there's a little bit of, you're so deeply in meditation and your gamma waves have gone up so much that you're actually so acutely aware of everything around you. So that's on the gamma waves. The beta waves are second. If gamma waves were the first that we speak about, the beta waves are the second, and they dominate, or they are really, really active when our brains are involved in consciously performing ordinary tasks. I'm planning, I'm organizing, I'm pouring hot water into my glass or into my cup of coffee, etc. Those are the waves. So Abran says, ma'am, so I have never believed in meditation. We'll come to that, Abran. Hold on, right? And that's the reason why. Because I know there is so much talk about meditation, and because I know that a lot of us don't understand meditation, and so anything and everything is being peddled in the form of meditation. That's why I'm talking to you about scientific stuff. How long do I have to do it to believe in it? Actually, it could be a matter of 5 minutes for you to start believing in the profound power of meditation. But that's also the reason why I'm creating the meditation and brain connection. Abran and anyone else who's in that state where you say, "Oh, meditation." No, not one more person who says, "Sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath in." No, I'm not talking about that at all. So we had the fastest ones, gamma. We had the second in line, beta. Then alpha waves. Now we are taught it's alpha, beta, gamma, right? But in this case, it's gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and then delta. But we'll come to the other two a little later. Alpha waves are a little slower, and these waves are actually they become active, so to speak, or they become the dominant uh, waves or dominant connection or oscillation when we are doing activities that relax us, mind, body, soul. So I could be taking a walk in nature if that's what helps me. I could be doing some yoga. I could be meditating. For me personally, for Shalu personally, I find this happening to me when I'm walking by the sea, when I'm watching rain fall. Like today, it happened to me in the morning. I had like frenzied right from 6 o'clock in the morning up until about 12:15, 12:20. I was just back to back to back to back to back to back with intense brain oriented work. There was a lot of discussion, there were coaching sessions, there was a translation into Hindi for another kind of session that I was that someone else was leading. Lots of stuff. And my ears, as the last session was happening, after that I had a very intense coaching session, but when my ears heard the rain fall, all I did was I got up, I left my phones behind, I went into the balcony, and I watched the rain fall. And instantly, from all that frenzied activity, from all that frenzied brain activity, thinking, talking, answering questions, providing solutions, coaching, listening, and absorbing the intense emotional activity of my client, that instantly started to settle down. That's what the alpha waves did. The minute I saw and I connected with the rain, my alpha waves kind of started to take over. And when you get into that situation, when you've meditated, when you've walked in a park, when you've done like I went and I listened to rain, it starts to take your mind away from the noise and the clutter of the mind and of the environment. So you don't pay attention to needless thoughts and stimuli. You don't get triggered by anything and everything. So I'll give you an example. When you're in a state like that, when so when I come out of a mindfulness meditation after I've finished mine, and Abran, I will not do it for more than 5 minutes. So you should know that it doesn't take forever and ever. But in those 5 minutes, then my brain doesn't go into 10 different places. So a lot of times I've observed, I've come out of a meditation and I've seen something which would have otherwise triggered me, and I've not been triggered. So triggered me into annoyance or into, why couldn't this be done? Just that sense of urgency or that restlessness. It's actually not triggered me at all. So meditation actually does that. There's if it interests you, there's a website called Psychology Today. Sorry, it was a blog that I could visualize seeing it over there, but it's Psychology Today, wherein they say that they were sharing about how neuroscientists have actually made a correlation between increasing alpha waves through meditation, through mindfulness, etc., and actually increasing creative thinking. So when your mind is at rest, you actually have, especially if you're a highly left brain oriented person, if you're too analytical, if you're too logical, and so on and so forth, when you sit down and do mindfulness practices or other meditation practices, neuroscientists found that the individual's ability to solve problems, the individual's ability to access their right brain actually went up so much more. So that's the power of alpha waves. Then you have theta waves, which are usually during, when you're in a dreaming state, when you're in deep relaxation, and when you're doing the Zen kind of meditation, which is really, really deep. And then, of course, there's delta, which is pretty much associated with deep dreamless sleep. So those are the 5 different kinds of oscillations that science has found. The linkage, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the linkage between brain waves, neurons, neural pathways, meditation, etc. But I'll just take a quick look. Raghav says chai pakoda is my meditation too. Well done. Sonali says that rain and chai pakoda do that, and Raghav says yes. Abdan says, so ma'am, I have heard if you look at your emotions objectively, it is as good as meditating. And Raghav is still in shock that our brains produce radiation. How was Hiroshima, Nagasaki back for us then? And Ganesh rightly said, that burned a lot of people. This only burns down your excessive mind chatter. Thank you, Ganesh. That was a good segue into this. Raghav, we are not talking about radiation the way, these devices emit radiation. We're not talking about radiation the way a nuclear bomb would emit radiation. No, we're talking about neural connections, neural conversations. We're talking about that. Don't take waves as radiation. It's incorrect information, and I'm letting you know that that's not what it is. So don't get don't get lost, and don't be in shock that your brain is producing radiation and now you're responsible for all the radiation around. Ganesh says if you were to take a radiation picker, you would not get any signal, which is absolutely correct. Okay, so moving away from radiation, do remember, science is now beginning to confirm what people who've been into meditation and spiritual practices have known for thousands of years. Why I say thousands of years? If you go back into your scriptures, the power of meditation, dhyana, as it was called, or as it is still called, dhyana was a very, very essential practice for most people. From the mundane to the kings, dhyana, or focusing, sitting in silence, sitting in what is now known as meditation, centering yourself, bringing your energies back in rather than allowing them to dither out, was a very essential practice that everyone did. Can we increase our creativity through binaural beats? Rohan, the jury is still out on that. there are some people who swear by binaural beats and they say, oh my god, this has changed, that has changed, and so on and so forth. Personally, I find that it helps me sleep, yes. Has it increased my creativity? I don't know. Has it changed my mind? I don't know. Oh, the frequencies, Raghav, don't worry for Raghav is going to be holding his head today and saying, oh my god, my brain emits radiation now. There's something called binaural beats as well. Raghav, there's a lot of work, and by the way, you're not the only one. The first time I heard all of this stuff, I also went into that. Huh? What now? What more do I need to learn, etc., etc. There's, it's not scary, Raghav. It's very interesting. Don't get scared by the things that you're hearing. And I'm just very very touched by your with your absolutely honest curiosity as well as your honest expression, your authentic expression. Oh my God, this is scary. So I'm not laughing at you. I'm just enjoying your curiosity. That's why I'm laughing. It's not at you. I'm not making fun of you at all. But I do want you to know, and thank you for making the session so much fun, all of you. Um, I'm just talking about, or we're just talking about the fact that um, I got lost in what I was saying. Yeah, we're talking about the fact that what our sages, what our ancients knew, that many, many, many thousands of years ago, that's what science is beginning to find out today. Science is now beginning to find out today what is the power of spirituality. Science is beginning to find out today that energy has so much of a role to play. So the same scientists, well, I don't know if it's the same ones or not, but people of science who earlier used to dismiss a brick as a brick, a rock as a rock, steel as steel, are now beginning to turn around and say, especially after they've had the opportunity to study energy so deeply under these newly fangled machines, they're now beginning to say, you know what, there is some truth and magic to all of this. So yeah, Rohan says, I always fail when I start meditation. I feel like I'm sleeping. And Sonali says she can definitely agree with that. I hear you. I hear you completely. And then again, there are too many schools of thought on that. I belong to the school of thought, which is also very convenient, by the way, that says that when you are asleep, or when you think you have fallen asleep when you started to meditate, your physical mind, your not the brain, your mind chatter, that all that noise you can hear, I'm not good enough, I'm not nice enough, I'm not loved enough, people don't love me, we are living in a scary world. All of that starts to go away because you're now sleeping, or what you believe you're sleeping. And when that happens, your brain is actually able to access, your body cells are actually able to access so much more information, so much more peace. And when that happens, when you wake up, even if you don't feel calm, relaxed, like a saint, which I never do, you are still calmer, and your reaction times are far reduced. Hi Dharmesh, good to have you. We're half an hour into the session today, so I hope you've been able to catch up with what we're talking about. Right now, we're just speaking about the fact that science is now beginning to catch up, actually beginning to catch up with what our sages, our ancients, our wise have always said, that nature, meditation, dhyana, all of these things will help you find yourself so much better. Do remember this, when you repeatedly do an activity, that's when you're strengthening your neural connections, which then develop the associated regions of your brain. For example, if you are a cab driver who is constantly, or even if you're a driver who likes to take different routes to the same destination all the time, you are strengthening the neural connections that develop what is called spatial reasoning in your brain. Meditation does the same thing. It starts to help you build new neural connections, which help you handle so many, many different things. Now, let's talk about the actual physical changes in the brain. There was a study done by something or a body called Trusted Source, which was published in the Journal of Psychiatry Research. There was a program called the Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction Training Program. And when people went through these 8 weeks, they actually learned that there is something called the cortical thickness. I'm sure you guys know of the gray matter. So it actually increased the gray matter's concentration inside the hippocampus, the part of the brain which is responsible for memory and regulating emotions. Not the cortex, the thickness of the gray matter, uh, the concentration of the gray matter, Ganesh. Not cortex, cortical thickness. It's called cortical thickness clinically. And the hippocampus is responsible for your memory. It's responsible for regulating your emotions. The same study also found that, if you remember, we did the amygdala hijack in one of our sessions. That study also found that there was a decrease in the volume of the amygdala, which is actually responsible for your stress, your fear, your anxiety, your fight, flight, freeze response. Meditation actually, research, scientific research has found that not only does meditation change the structure in the participants' brains, it also changes how they feel. It's amazing. Yeah, there you go. Yet another study compared the brain scans of a group of people who meditated and those who didn't. The researchers found that those who meditated showed more stability in what is called the ventral posteromedial cortex, the region of the brain which is linked to spontaneous thoughts and mind wandering. So when your mind starts to wander, it is actually happening in the ventral posteromedial cortex. Yeah, the amygdala's volume has been found to change because of meditation, etc. Ganesh. So when that part of your brain, whether the amygdala or the ventral posterior medial cortex, are subjected to meditation, subjected to mindfulness, subjected to Zen meditation, and so on and so forth, meditation actually creates structural and emotional changes in your brain and in your body. Um, another study that was done actually found that, sorry, let me just look at the, is it instantaneous or does that happen over time? I would imagine it happens over a period of time, Ganesh. It's not that today I sat down in meditation with my mind wandering over 40,000 different places and my amygdala shrank. No. The more you build your muscle in meditation, the more you build your ability to meditate and let the thoughts calm down, let the ventral posteromedial cortex calm down, the more your structural changes in the brain happen. So it happens over a period of time. Ma'am, please tell me how to do meditation right away. I mean, what are the things we should do? Should we just close and eyes and breathe or something else? I will talk to you in a little while about that. I just want to talk about what are the effects of meditation on the brain. I'll give you very specific, clear areas where the brain has been found to be impacted. And this is not Shalu talking about it. This is Harvard neuroscientist Sarah Lazar, who's talking about the regions of the meditator's brain, how they become healthier, how they become more substantial, which area shrinks, and so on and so forth. So you have something called the left hippocampus. This left hippocampus is the area in the brain which helps us learn. The tools that we use for cognitive ability, for memory, emotional regulators, tools related to self-awareness and empathy, all of these tools, what I just spoke about, the cortical thickness of the hippocampus, all of this stuff gets impacted by any kind of meditative exercise practices that you do, where you're truly meditating, not when you're breathing, breathe out, not when you're doing that stuff. The other area that gets impacted is called the posterior cingulate. It's connected with your wandering thoughts. The simpler name for the ventral posteromedial cortex is the posterior cingulate. The degree of subjectivity and referral to oneself while you're processing information. The larger your posterior cingulate, the lesser the mind wanders, the more realistic your understanding of yourself can be, good and bad. So when you meditate, meditation actually allows you to stay in the present moment without judgment, without regret, without anticipation, without expectation, and it heightens your ability to observe sensations and emotions that are arising in that nonsensical mind chatter that's going on. I'm not good enough. Oh my God, look at how he looked at me. Oh goodness, she shouted at me. None of this matters. The third area, which is very important, in fact, it's one of the most sensitive areas of the brain. Here is something called the pons, middle of the brainstem. Pons comes from the Latin word bridge. So it actually connects the left and the right brain. And this is a very, very busy area. It's where maximum of your, I'll just come back to that, Saurabh. It's where the maximum of your neurotransmission is happening. Too many functions, sleep, facial expressions, processing the sensory input that I was just talking about. Someone is shouting, someone is looking at me in a funny manner, basic physical functioning. All of this is handled by the pons, and the pons actually get, it's called pons, P-O-N for Nancy, S. The pons actually get activated, get strengthened via meditation. There is another area in our brain called the temporoparietal junction that gets strengthened. And that actually increases our empathy and compassion. That increases our ability to understand other people around us, to stop looking at the spotlight on myself and start looking at other people and understand where they come from, understand their world from their perspective, rather than looking at their world from my lens and saying, oh, what's the problem? Okay, got that. Ganesh says, ma'am, it's really good to see how interested you are in neurology. I'm actually very interested in anything that allows people to truly find their potential and power. So we've already spoken about the amygdala. Now, the main area which I'm the most interested about to do with productivity, meditation, the brain, is actually our prefrontal cortex. This entire area. This is also the neo brain, the last part of the brain to have developed thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, not like day before yesterday. So this area is responsible for so many of our executive functions: decision making, focus, judgment, behaviors that allow us to deal with other people in the here and now. Discipline, self-discipline, planning, organizing. If you meditate and your prefrontal cortex experiences lesser resistance towards doing the right thing, so you will not procrastinate. Your neurons will fire so much easier and your performance will improve significantly. Whether you're studying, whether you're working, whether you're playing, whether you're in a discussion with someone who you really care about, all of that is happening here. And all of that, because of your meditative practices, allows your prefrontal cortex to be strengthened, to be calmer, to be able to work so much more powerfully in the here and now. And that's where meditation helps, because it allows to declutter thoughts. Thoughts are here, the decluttering happens here. Concentration happens here, decluttering, and that happens here. I'm just going to take a moment to look at the chat. It says, Raghav, so Saurabh was asking me something. What was that about being shouted on? It was about your response, right? If somebody is shouting at you and you've just come out of a meditation, or you've been, meditative practices have helped you strengthen certain parts of your brain, including shrinking the amygdala. That's when somebody's shouting at you, you will not react. That's what I was speaking about, Saurabh. Raghav says, yes, I would say that although understanding things is a bit of a problem here, or because you're feeling that it's the same. Raghav, I understand that. Please don't forget, you're listening to this maybe for the first or the second time. I've been studying it for years and years and years. So therefore, Abran says, man, you clearly have a very, very fluid thought process. How long have I been meditating? About 12 years or a little bit more than that. And Rohan says, I'm zero at everything. I want to change. And I'm the biggest procrastinator. So the first thing you want to do, Rohan, is stop judging yourself and stop saying I'm zero at everything. Please remember, it takes, Malcolm Gladwell has written a book about it, and he says it takes 10,000 plus hours to become an expert at anything. And I've been studying all this for years and years. Remember that. Abran says, I can't do that. I can't meditate for 12 years. Abran, I haven't been meditating 24/7 for 12 years. I started out, I couldn't sit for more than 1 minute. Then I could sit for a few hours together, and now I don't sit for more than 5 minutes again, because the brain has been trained. The brain has been trained that when you start to meditate, how quickly can you go into your meditations. And I also want to let you guys know, I still have days when I will sit down, but my mind is such a mess. There is so much going on. This needs to be done. That person needs to be taken care of. I have to respond. This invoice needs to be raised. This recording needs to be done. Now I have a live session today. There is so much that's going on that it takes me also about 10 minutes, 20 minutes for me to just let everything go, relax my mind, allow the meditation to work on me, allow the meditation to declutter my mind, and then I actually, enjoy those 5 minutes of pure bliss, pure peace. Abran said, I don't think I've ever done anything for 12 years. And Raghav says, you did school. And he says, Abran says, yes, the only thing. I like this conversation. I am more interested in the chat right now than talking about all this. So anyhow, Rohan says, ma'am, I'm in the creative field, so I want to enhance my creativity, productivity, focus on how to start. Good question. First, know that meditation can actually do all these things for you. Understand that when you allow your brain, when you allow your mind to relax, whatever practices you use, and I'll just talk about them. We are running a little short of time, but I'll just start talking about them. When you allow your brain to start working in a structured manner, to start working in an organized manner, when you start to reduce the inner chatter by working on yourself, by understanding your emotional intelligence, by understanding your emotional triggers, your responses, and your reactions to them. So you're doing in all of this hard work, right? You're putting in all the effort. When you start to work with that, you will find your access to your own creativity goes up much higher. Remember what I was saying earlier, especially for people who are extremely left brain. And we have been taught to be left brain. We are not taught to tap into our creative side. We are usually, oh, no sound. I'm sorry, I wonder why. Is that just for Suresh, or can actually nobody else hear me either? Okay, Suresh, could I please request you to check either your earphones or your volume on your computer? Thank you so much, Raghav and Rohan, for confirming. I was like, okay, great. Thank you, Sonali. Okay. So remember what I was talking about our left brain? Since we're children, we're not encouraged to tap into our creative sides. Now people are becoming a lot more cognizant of the importance of the right brain, of the importance actually of whole brain thinking. By and large, at least, especially till my generation, we were taught think with your left brain, try to reason, try to analyze, try to question, try to get to the root of things. Stop dancing all the time, stop doing all the, what do you mean by you want to paint, what do you mean you want to explore things, just sit down and do your math. That's what we were taught. By the way, when I was growing up, we didn't have subjects like data science, and we didn't have things like neuroplasticity and neuroscience and neurology and all. We didn't get taught any of these things. We had mechanical engineering, we had chemical engineering, and so on and so forth. You could be a doctor, you could be a scientist, you could be a banker. These were the respectable professions. And so when someone like Shalu decided to say, I don't want to, and you could be a lawyer, and when someone like Shalu said, I don't want to go into law, the family was like, what? I don't want to become a doctor. What? What do you want to do? I don't know. I want to explore my life. So what did Shalu do? There was definitely no biotechnology then, Ganesh. At least not. It wasn't something that you studied here in India. And I've done my entire schooling here in India. So at that time, we were actually told, no, you have to learn math. You have to learn my goodness, what am I doing with trigonometry today? What was the point in me spending all that time when actually I could go ahead and learn something new? So what did Shalu do when she started? First 5 years of her career, Shalu was a copywriter with a cards company. Shalu was a copywriter and a visualizer in an ad agency. Shalu was a radio jockey. Shalu did production of business programs on television. So that's everything that Shalu did because she was so interested in her left brain, in her right brain, sorry, because the right brain was all about creativity. Luckily, Shalu had parents who understood that, but not everyone had the same luck. So Shalu could follow her dreams, and Shalu could, travel to almost every continent on the planet, every inhabitable continent on the planet, by the way. Why do you refer? Sonali wants to know, why do you refer to yourself with your name sometimes? I'm just giving an example that Shalu is a person. There are a lot of other people like me, but I'm just taking my name because I'm right here live in front of you, and that's real for you rather than me taking a random hypothetical person's example. Ganesh says, actually, ma'am, biotech is similar to chemical engineering. Thank you. I did not know that. Now I do. Okay. So, bringing it back here, can you access your creativity via meditation? Absolutely. The more you start to work with your brain, the more you understand that there are certain practices like meditation. By the way, I want to dispel a myth that meditation is about sitting cross legged in an absolutely quiet place. If you find a cave, even better. And it's about breathing in and breathing out. No, absolutely not. When you are completely immersed in something that you're doing, that is meditation. So you could be enjoying a dish that you're cooking and you completely block out the world around you and you just get lost in the flavors, the colors, the textures, the fragrance of what you're cooking. That's meditation. Your brain is focused, your brain is aligned, your entire mind body energy is aligned to what you are doing. Your mind is telling you, maybe I need to add a little bit more oregano. Then you take a little bit of a taste. Now it's the physical body in action. And the taste tells you, maybe I need to just overturn the entire dish within the wok once or twice. And then you take a taste of it again and you get the taste and you say, now it's perfect. And your energy is aligned in all of that. Looking at the chat, Ganesh says, and you need to be worshipping Shiva throughout. That's also a myth. You could be worshipping any energy. You could be immersed in and engaged with anything. You could be looking at a piece of stone and just interacting with that with complete concentration, and that's pure meditation. Okay. Uh, what would you like me to repeat, Rohan? So Rohan wants me to repeat something. Could you just let me know and I will repeat that if I can remember it? Remember, I don't have a script. I don't have anything written. I'm just sharing with you what I know. The meditation. Yeah. So what I was saying was that I'll change the example. I was talking about cooking. Let's say you're someone who likes to do things with your hands. Maybe you like to paint. Maybe you like to assemble things together. And now you've got whatever it is that you like to do, whether paint or assemble, you've got all your things in front of you. And you start to assemble or you start to paint, you get so immersed in it, you feel what you're working on. You look at it, you take a step back and you say, doesn't feel right. Now you're interacting with your energy. But you're so totally immersed in it that you completely block everything else out. Maybe your mother is calling out and saying, come on, you got to do this, you got to handle this. And you're like, whatever, doesn't work, and so on and so forth. But you're completely immersed in that. That in itself is meditation. You take a walk in nature. Sorry about that. Okay. You take a walk in nature and you're completely immersed in listening to the rustling of the leaves, feeling the wind blow, the breeze blow against your face, your hair, touching your clothes. You're totally immersed in that. You're completely, totally one with the jungle that you're walking in or the park or the trail that you're walking in. That is meditation. Abraham says, I think I block out everything that my mom says anyway. Thank God she's not listening into this. So, meditation. Now, having said all of that, does it help to sit cross-legged and breathe in and breathe out when you do the breathing in and breathing out by only focusing on your breath going in and your breath coming out? Absolutely. It totally does. If you can focus on that, if you can get past the judgment of what am I doing? I'm sitting here like a fool. Oh God, my knees have started to hurt. Oh God, my lower back is hurting. What am I doing? How long will it take? These thoughts are not going away. I can't seem to meditate. How much time has gone? You close one eye and you open up the other one to look at your watch and say, it's only been 3 minutes. What's going on here? That's not meditation, but there are a lot of people, Zen monks, who will sit cross-legged, who will close their eyes, who will focus on only their breath and nothing else, and they go into the deepest of deep meditations that is possible. So is there one right way of meditating? No. The one key core thing of meditating is the more you focus on something that allows all other chatter, all other clutter in your mind to fall away, that becomes your meditation. Raghav is saying that's still cheating. Doesn't matter if you just opened one eye to check the timer. I agree with that, Raghav. That's not meditation. That's you being busy. That's you pretending to meditate. So, if you truly are learning, and I have a hard stop at 6 o'clock today because I have another session. So much as I'd love to talk about this topic because I really, really love it, remember this: there is a clear correlation between your productivity. If you're a student, between your productivity, your brain, and your meditation. If you're a student, just before you're going to sit down to study for a critical subject, and usually a subject which you don't like, focus yourself, try and block out all judgments, all conversations, all preconceived notions that you have about that subject, about yourself in that subject, everything you've heard your teachers say to you about that subject, your friends say to you about that subject. Shut it all out. Just collect your energies, focus on your breath, focus on a good thought, focus on the energy of the sun, focus on your feet firmly on the floor, anything that allows you to focus, and let all these other thoughts get out of your mind. Sit down and study. Then you will notice that whatever you study after this, you will never forget. For the rest of your life, you won't forget it. Well, yeah, for the rest of your life, you won't forget it. Thank you, Abran. Abran says he really liked my session a lot. I'm assuming it's he. Abran says, ma'am, I really liked your session a lot. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you did. You're more than welcome to join in again tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, on Saturday, and then next Thursday. We'll continue to have our conversations around leadership and around emotional intelligence. Do remember that there is a direct scientific correlation now, not radiation, but the fact that there are neural oscillations. There is neural activity that is happening in your brain at various vibrational levels. And the more you are actually able to access that by calming yourself down, by relaxing your idle chatter that's going on in your brain, the more productive, the more successful you will find yourself to be. Rohan says, so meditation is not the only dhyanam, but it could be whatever we like to do and doing with focus. Absolutely, yes. Ganesh says, I will join your next stream, ma'am. Thank you so much. Please, I think you have to follow something. Follow me somewhere, and you should be able to get pings. This is how I remember things. You'll get pings that say that, we're going to go live on Creator soon. Usually, 5 p.m. on Saturdays, 6 p.m. on Thursdays is what we do. Today was an exception because I have another meeting at 6 o'clock, which is equally critical as critical as it was for me to meet you. So thank you very much for joining in. If you'd like to join me, if you'd like to follow me, I'm at Coach Butcher on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. I have been taught to do this. Rohan, you're so welcome. He says, thank you, ma'am, for today. You're so very welcome. And I am on LinkedIn as Shalu Butcher. You're more than welcome to connect. You're more than welcome to send me your questions if you have any, your thoughts, your feedback. Please send your feedback. It's always good. And please engage on all these social media channels. Don't just sit quiet and don't just do a like. Please engage. Oh, wait, is the session over? Raghav says, yes, Raghav, unfortunately, it is over for today. Thank you so very much for joining in. I hope you've been able to see the connections between your brain, the scientific parts of your brain, or the study of science on your brain, meditation, and your productivity. Please begin the practices of meditation, mindfulness meditation, Zen meditation, walking meditation, binaural beats, whatever it is that you'd like to do, and enjoy yourself. I will see you day after tomorrow. Today was super cool. Thank you very much. Yes, it was. I have not laughed so much in a session in a long time. So thank you very, very much for creating that space, everyone. Have a good evening ahead. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Bye. And I am also just going to do the leaving here. Bye, Ritisha.